Okay, today I'm going to be looking at the track I Need Somebody by Iggy and the Stooges. And this one's been quite heavily requested. I think most recently last week someone asked if I could make a video on this song. And I'm more than happy to oblige. This is another track from 1973's Raw Power album, one of my favourite records. I think one of the greatest rock and roll records of all time. And in a previous video I kind of half joked that I would get round to making a video on all of the tracks from this album, and I'm actually not too far off now. I'm over halfway there, so I might actually complete the entire record. But what I'm going to do now is just play through a bit of the track for you. Obviously I'm not going to be able to bring the insanity and danger of the actual recording to my humble YouTube tutorial video, but I'm going to have some fun and then I'll take you through how some of these riffs are played. Let's get straight down to business then. I'm going to try and keep this video reasonably concise. There are just such great riffs on this song. It's all about the riffs for me, the playing of James Williamson. Most of this stuff is quite simple to play, and that's often the case with classic riffs. They're not that hard, but you actually sit down and try and write some riffs like this, and you realise that it's very difficult to do it right, and there's a magic about these kind of riffs. And you know, James Williamson has written a dozen all-time classic rock and roll riffs. And let's begin with the opening riff. I should mention that I've got a capo on here at the 3rd fret. I believe this is how James Williamson plays it, and that opening riff sounds like this. So it's mostly played with power chords. This one, we're kind of in the key of E here. I'm going to talk about this one in the key of E. It's based around this E chord shape here, this open E chord. Obviously with the capo on, it's sounding higher, as if though we're playing it in the key of G, but I'm starting with this shape here. So you can hold down a full E chord if you want to, but really just hearing the power chord bit of that shape, so the lowest 2 or 3 strings. And then we've got a series of descending power chords. So I'm coming up, this is the 10th fret, it's coming down 1 fret at a time, and then coming down to the 3rd fret relative to the capo, and then back to the first open E chord shape. And the rhythm here is important. This whole track has got a nice kind of lazy, shuffly swing feel to it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice that we've got a triplet here on beat 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got this accent on the and of 4. It's really important that you've got that accent in there. That's the slightly unusual bit of this riff that makes it so catchy, I think. 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's that push, that accent there that gives the riff that momentum. And another really cool thing about this track is the acoustic guitar, and this is a great feature of the entire Raw Power album. And you think that the whole album is just, you know, really heavy electric guitars, but often there are some subtle layers of acoustics which sort of really give the album kind of a nice kind of subtlety and light and shade. And you know, all of these parts on this track are doubled with acoustic guitars, sometimes playing exactly the same riffs, sometimes I think playing some slightly different things, although it's a little bit hard to hear that stuff. But with the acoustic guitar you can just play this same riff. It's possible that there are some higher notes coming through in the acoustic part, so maybe just you're holding down some bar chord shapes there and getting some slightly sweeter higher notes coming through. Next comes the verse riff, which is the one that goes like this. Another great riff, actually very similar to the opening riff. It's just changed slightly, which is quite a clever thing to do, really, just changing the main riff so you've got another section of the song, and it's still based around this open E chord shape, but then we've got ascending chords instead of descending chords. So instead of 10, 9, 8, we've got 8, 9 and 10. And we're coming down to this third fret shape, I think giving it a slight bend out of tune, which is really nice. And then we just got some open strings in passing, and then we've got this great arpeggiated part. I really love this part. It's really based on a C7 chord and then a B7 chord, so that the frets I'm holding down here, we've got from the 5th string I've got fret 3 and then 2 and then 3, and then you've got the open 2nd string, and then we're just taking that shape down. So essentially it's a C7 going down to a B7. Just going to shout out the string numbers here for this picking pattern. We're starting on string 5. We've got 5, 2, 3, 5, 3, 4. And then we're changing to the B7 and we've got 5, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Probably the most challenging part of the song is just cleanly picking those arpeggios. They are very cleanly played on the recording if you listen to it. So start slowly with that, just memorize the picking pattern and gradually build up speed, get that into the muscle memory of your picking hand. So that's our main riff. Just a quick switch to an acoustic guitar, and once again I think this riff is double tracked by an acoustic, but it's not quite a straight double track. There's a bit of a variation, and the way I'm hearing it is like this. So you can hear, instead of having those ascending power chords, we've got this kind of blues shuffle type part. It's a very common thing to do. So just based on that E power chord and then putting down my 3rd finger to create that kind of shuffly bluesy part. I'm hearing an open 4th string in passing, and then the arpeggio bit is the same as before. effective variation on that main part. And whilst I'm talking about variations, I might just give you a couple of alternative ways of playing the main riffs in this tune. Listening very closely to the recording, I mean, it is quite hard to say for sure what's going on. It's quite a messy recording, different layers. It sounds to me like the electric guitars are probably just playing those power chords in those main riffs, but you can play the riffs just using single notes down in this area of the fretboard down towards the capos. So the opening riff you could play with more single notes in there, and really these riffs are based on the blues scale, so the E blues scale and the opening riff just coming down that blues scale from the fifth, and then likewise with the verse riff you could play that like this. With some more single notes, and this is the way that I've seen James Williamson do it in some live footage, and you know, I think live he's obviously going to play it slightly differently from the recording in some cases, so that's, you know, not an unusual thing. As I say, listening to the original recording sounds like it's mostly he's playing power chords on that, but I'm just going to give you some other options here and you can play around with them and you decide which ones you like best. Moving on to the chorus, which I'm playing like this. So essentially what we've got here, we've got an E chord, going to a D, going to an A, and then we've got those two seventh chords that we had in the main riff. So I'm calling that a C7 going to a B7. That's the basic chorus part. But Williamson is throwing in a couple of nice extra touches, some extra notes, which I think really make the part happen. So instead of just playing an E chord, we've got, you know, hearing some higher notes in there. So it might just be this high note at the third fret, or I'm playing, I have a double stop there with my pinky, so the third fret on the top two strings. I'm just kind of giving that high accent, which gives you that kind of Hendrix chord sound, that sort of 7 sharp 9, which is nice. And then we've got a D sus4, and it might be resolved to a regular D chord. It's a little bit hard to hear that. And then on the A chord I'm adding in this note as well, which gives you a nice A7 sound. So that's the chorus. I think we play that riff 3 times and then it goes back to the opening riff. That's really it for the riffs in this song. There are some nice lead guitar parts as well, which I'm just going to talk about now, and you can hear some lead guitar fills during the chorus, and I think they're probably overdubbed lead guitar parts, but they come kind of in the gap at the end of the riff between the vocal phrases. So that kind of thing, and they're all based on the minor pentatonic scale, so E minor pentatonic scale if you're sort of thinking about your E chord here, but actually sounding as G minor pentatonic. And in my little playthrough at the start I just played G minor pentatonic. I didn't have a capo on the guitar, so you could just take the capo off, just do some stuff with G minor pentatonic. I don't think you need to overthink this or learn these fills note for note. They're played kind of quite wildly, so if you kind of find that pentatonic shape, noodle around within it, you should be able to find something cool. And if you're playing this song on your own, if it's just one guitar, then you can certainly squeeze in some little lead guitar fills in between the rhythm parts. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So at the end of the phrase you've got a couple of beats, and that's where you can squeeze in your lead licks. Then there's some soloing at the end of the song, and really it's the kind of soloing I don't think there's much point in trying to learn that note for note. It's so wildly played, it's not really reproducible. At least I can't reproduce it, and it's not really worth me spending hours trying to get that exactly. I don't think it's kind of against the spirit of the tune. So really what I would recommend you do is just do some stuff G minor pentatonic. You can kind of play it down here. In my little solo at the start, I was kind of coming up into the 15th position here and just going for some quite kind of wild bends. And this kind of soloing is really just about attitude and, you know, digging in hard and, you know, just making some noise. Really, you don't need to overthink it. Let me talk about the gear that I'm using today. And I think in my last couple of videos I didn't talk about gear, and I got a couple of complaints, so I'm going to try and keep everybody happy today. And the guitar I'm using, obviously a Les Paul. This is a 59 reissue Les Paul, quite a fancy one. I did buy it second hand, but it's still quite a lot of money, but I'm pleased I bought it. It's a really, really nice guitar. I do love playing it, so I don't really consider myself much of a Les Paul kind of a guy, but whenever I get it out I really have fun with it. It's a super cool guitar. Amp wise, today I'm going through this Marshall amp behind me, and I believe that the head is a Studio Vintage series head based on the Marshall Plexi, but it's kind of a lower wattage version of that. And I'm recording it through the aux box, this thing that sits on top, and you basically just plug that in between the head and the speaker, and it's also got recording output, so I can just run the recording line out from that into my computer, and it's just a nice convenient way of getting a nice sound. And all of the overdrive sound I'm getting on those riffs is coming straight from the amp. It's got a really nice natural sounding overdrive, but I did use one pedal during the lead guitar section, so on the fills and on my solo, and that pedal was the Analog Man Beano Boost, which is basically a Dallas Rangemaster style pedal. It works really well with a Les Paul and an already overdriven amp. It just gives you that really nice classic rock lead guitar sound. That's it for today. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you would like to learn more tracks from Raw Power, I think I've done 4 other videos so far. As I say, I might well try and complete the entire record, and I think there are 8 tracks on the record, so I've got about 3 to go. Maybe I'll do another one a bit later this year. If you would like tab and a backing track to this song, those are going to be up on the Patreon page as usual. Thanks for watching. See you next time.